أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله اللهم صل على محمد وآله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي كان موجودا قبل حدوث الأشياء ويبقى بعد فناء الأشياء تفرد بالأولية والقدم ووسم كل شيء ما عداه بالفناء والعدم كما قال عز شأن كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام سبحان من لا يخفى عليه اختلاف النيات ولا يعزب عنه ماسل العباد في الخلوات سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خير يرى ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شر يرى نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يضاد في حكمه يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء ويرحم من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء تعذيبه المسيئين عدل وعفوه تفضل ونشهد أن محمدا سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين والمنذرين صلى الله عليه وآله الهداة المهديين من ركب سفينتهم نجا واهتدى ومن تخلف عنها ضل فغرق وهوى أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى فإنه حبل متين فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I begin by advising myself and all of you to practice the taqwa as is the best of provisions. The verse I had recited it last night as well when we were talking about our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam. And 7th of Zul-Hijj marks the martyrdom and the shahadat of 5th Imam. And then tomorrow, inshallah, will be the martyrdom of Muslim ibn Aqil. And of course, tomorrow is also known as the day of Arafah. Yeah, in Saudi Arabia, they're going one day in advance, so the pilgrims are all gathered in the plains of Arafat right now, or they might have gone past Arafat now because the wujub of doing the waqf and wuquf and staying in Arafat begins from the time of Zawal, and it lasts until the time of sunset. These 5, 6, 7 hours are the time, is the wajib wuquf in Arafat that is to be performed on the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah. And this is one of the integral parts of the rituals of Hajj. It is mentioned that the name of Arafat, and you know the word Arafah, which is derived from, which means to know, is because that when Hazrat Adam and Hazrat Hawa alayhim as-salatu was-salam, they had left the paradise and they landed on the earth, the place where they landed were separate. So their flight and their destination was separate, different. They both landed at the different places. And then when they met each other, this was the land where they met one another, meaning they recognized one another. That's where the word Arafat comes into, that Hazrat Hawa recognized Hazrat Adam, or Hazrat Adam recognized Hazrat Hawa in this particular place, which is today known as Arafat. And that's the etymology of the name, why it is called that. It's really compared to the Day of Judgment. If you've been to Hajj, and if you've witnessed the rituals of Hajj, the most difficult ritual of Hajj is probably the stay in Arafat. Before that, everything is, you're excited, you want to do it. Yeah, tawaf is difficult, but you still, perform it. After Arafat, it's sort of like a, downhill. But the climax builds up until the time of Arafat. Merely 5, 6, 7 hours that you have to spend in these plains are one of the most difficult ones. Keep in mind the heat that is bearing down, the middle of the day, you're in the middle of a desert. Now with all the comforts that are there, such as the tents, air-conditioned tents and whatnot, but it's still, people have the most difficult time. If they go through the challenge of going through Arafat, then of course everything else after that is the easy part. But nonetheless, this is the place which is symbolic in that reference. And inshallah tomorrow we will celebrate the day of Arafah by one of the main things that you can perform on the day of Arafah is ghusl. Number 2 is to observe the fast of the day of Arafah, one of the more important fasts, mustahab fast of the entire calendar year. And then inshallah we will have the amal of the day of Arafah beginning at Dhuhr time tomorrow. We kept it at the time of Dhuhr because that's when in the actual rituals of Hajj you perform that amal. It begins from Zawal, which is the time of Dhuhr, and it ends with sunset. Our amal will not be that long. It'll only be 45 minutes to an hour long, but nonetheless we'll start it after Salatul Dhuhr. I wanted to continue as I had promised last night. I didn't get a chance to get into some of the fadail and the teachings of our 5th Imam. As of course you realize that these opportunities that we are given of the wiladat and the shahadat of Masumeen serves as a great learning point for us, curve for us, so that we can adopt their teachings, apply them into our lives. And it's a constant reminder for us, because the lives of Masumeen were filled with so much good, so much wisdom, and even the amal and the actions, the seerah of Masumeen, without even paying attention to their words, is la amal for us. It's code of conduct for us. And so therefore it is viable, it is important that we pay attention to what ma'asumin, especially each imam whose wiladat or shahadat that we encounter. One of the features or the prominent features and the qualities of our fifth imam is his hilm and forbearance. Forbearance is one of the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's halim. You hear that all the time. Like other imams, he would treat not only those who were good to him, but also those who were not so good to him. That's called hilm. Forbearance is not to treat those who are good to you well, but also treat those who are not good to you well. This is a godly sifat, and it's a sifat which is, taught by ma'sumin, and not just taught by ma'sumin, but also practiced as well. And you can look at the examples from Amirul Mu'mineen until our 11th Imam, Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam. So, because we are talking about fifth Imam, remember the story of that man who made fun of his name. His name is Baqir. Well, his name is Muhammad, but his title is Baqir. Instead of calling him Baqir, he called him Baqar. Made fun of his name. What is Baqar? So we have Surah Baqarah in Quran, which means a cow. So, in order to get under the skin of Imam and use something derogatory toward him, this man made fun of his name. Name calling is something which Quran forbids. In Surah Hujurat talks about it, that do not associate titles which are not fitting for people. Do not call them after, Iman, with names and nicknames that you have set for yourself and making fun of others. Yes, if someone, we're not talking about those nicknames that are developed in the houses, right? You all have some sort of nicknames in your houses which are given to you by maybe your parents or your siblings or your elders, and they're not out of, disrespect. They're just there because it's easy for them to call different nicknames in different parts of the world. In fact, if you look at some of the nicknames, you can actually tell which part of the world the person belongs to. So if the nicknames fall Chamman, Bachchan, these sort of names, Luddan, or all of these, you can understand that these people belong to the Bihar part of India, for example, or other types that might be there as well. But nonetheless, you find that different types of nicknames are there. Those that are given to you at home, we're not talking about that. But when you when you see someone with some specific quality or habit, and then you give them a name, that is something which is being stopped. Quran specifically talks about it in Surah Hujurat. So this man called Imam Baqar. Imam, did he mind? Of course. If someone messes your name, if your name sounds and is similar to another thing which is bad, for example, you're going to take aback. You're going to feel bad about it. But Imam, instead of showing any emotions and getting all infuriated, he said, no, my name is Baqir. The best response was to correct this person. Maybe he's making a mistake. Although Imam knew this person was not making a mistake. Instead, he was doing it on purpose. And when he saw that Imam had no reaction to it, he was not able to get under the skin of Imam, then he attacked something which, of course, all of us honor. He attacked Imam's mother. And then he said and associated something, which is not shayan-e-shan of Imam's mother, or anyone's mother for that matter. Again, he saw that if it was you and I, astine upar or ladai, that's it. How dare you speak ill of my mother? This is the honor, respect. So Imam responded back by saying, if what you associate with my mother is true, I ask Allah to forgive her. If you associate with my mother which is false, because you are slandering her, then I ask Allah to forgive you for this mistake. This is called hilm. This is forbearance. That while showing your character and composure in order to respond to something which is derogatory towards you, and at the same time doing tabligh as well. What was the result of this man? This man right away bowed in front of Imam, looked at Imam with love and compassion and said, can you forgive me for what I have done? But had Imam done what you and I would have done, slap this man and run away, get out of here, this man would have never come to the path of Ahlul Bayt. So that's first feature of Imam, which is forbearance. He said, قُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا فَقَالَ قُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ أَحْسَنَ مَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يُقَالُ لَكُمْ. You speak to people, call people, address people with that which is the best. And then he says something better than that. He says, yeah, that's right, we should be best. He says, speak to them, قُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ أَحْسَنَ مَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يُقَالُ لَكُمْ. You speak to them better than what you expect people to call you, right? If someone was to speak to me, you would expect that they would call me with some honor and respect. He said, treat people with a better way. Or if not better, at least in the same way. You want someone to not mistreat you? Why are you going ahead and mistreating that individual? He says, I advise you of 5 things. Even if you are oppressed, don't oppress others in return. If they betray you, don't betray them. If they deny you, don't get angry and too happy if they praise you. Don't be impatient if they criticize you. That is the problem. Right away, when someone comes up and genuinely, or even sometimes ingenuinely, criticizes, this is where it does not have to do much for this person to get under our skin. Right away, we'll show the worst of ours, and speak ill. And so what do you know? How do you come up and dare challenge what I have said? And this is something which you find more so in the scholars too, not just ordinary individuals, in scholars. We are here, for example, I don't consider myself to a scholar, I'm a talib ilm, but nonetheless, I'm speaking to you. If there's something that I say over here, it's absolutely up for scrutiny. You can go ahead and scrutinize me for what I have said. Because I'm speaking with all authority, I'm speaking with absolute taking liability for what I'm saying and sharing. It's kalam of Masoom. Of course, not my kalam. But you have the right to go ahead and criticize. You have the right to go ahead and speak up and question. But for me to get agitated in response that, what do you know? Did I buy this amama from the streets? Did I just go for ziyarat and pick this up on my way back? Or I studied over there for many years? This is not the right answer. The right answer is what? Hilm of Masumeen. The forbearance of Imams. If we are representatives of that Imam, we have to be reflective of their characters and respond to people in the nicest way. If you have a question, if you criticize me of something that I have said, and you have the right to do so, it is my duty to go ahead and enlighten you if I'm correct. And if I'm wrong, then I have to accept the fact that yes, I could make a mistake as well. I'm not infallible. There's a possibility of fallibility in me that I will make a mistake. And I might have misunderstood this ayat of Quran, for example. I might have misunderstood, for example, this hadith of Imam Ma'asum. And therefore, this is my interpretation. So, that's the first feature of Imam, which is forbearance. Second feature of Imam that you find is sabr. In fact, one of his titles, along with being Halim, is to also be Sabir. Fifth Imam displayed enormous amount of sabr on every turn in his life. Whether it was during the events of Karbala, he was 4 years old. He witnessed everything with his own eyes. And then the 35 years of continuous oppression on his father until his shahadat in the year 95, our fourth Imam's shahadat. He witnessed all of those events. Then he witnessed how his forefathers were cursed from the pulpit of the Umayyads. Of course, he did not live until the time of the Abbasids, and how they were persecuted. He even displays sabr on individual level. There's a story which is associated with second Imam as well as fifth Imam. Allah knows which one is correct or which Imam it is associated with, but nonetheless, I'll narrate the story anyway. That once Imam was sitting with his companions in his house, and he heard the news of cry coming from the other room. Imam got up and went there. He said, one of the servants in the house, female servants in the house, who was carrying your son, she accidentally dropped your son, and your son died on the spot. Imam ﷺ, at this point, shows immense amount of sabr. He said, Allah gave and Allah took it away. It was his amanat, and he took it away. And then on top of that, Imam says, there should be some punishment for this lady who did this, at least, right? Some sort of repercussions. Imam said, no, anti hurra li wajhillah. You are free to go for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So not only that you cause me damage, I lost my son because of you, but the reaction that Imam is showing is absolutely something when you are bestowed with something, not when something is taken away from you. That is the sabr. Of course, you and I would say, well, how can we duplicate this type of sabr? It's very difficult. And these are not fairy tales either, brothers. These are the lives of Masumin, the immaculate Imams. That's why sometimes you worry how when people start comparing Masumin with people like us, when they don't understand, they degrade them to our levels. Allah sent prophets and Imams in human figures so they could be the best role model for us. They could lead the life so that we can look up to them and we can emulate. If they were angels or other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how would it be possible for us to go ahead and completely emulate Ma'asumin? But with that said, don't go ahead and start drawing parallels between yourself and Imams. There are 5 at least features in which you are different, or Masumin are different than us. What are these 5 things? Allah gave 5 things to Ahlul Bayt which you and I don't have. Number 1, He gave them infallibility. إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. Masala. Tell which one of us is infallible. Right? That's number 1. Number 2, He gave them access to Lawh al-Mahfuz and the knowledge of unseen. Which one of us has the knowledge of the unseen? You and I are so heedless about the knowledge of the seen sometime, let alone the knowledge of the things that are happening in front of us. Still we go ahead and don't pay heed to that, let alone things which were hidden from us. He gave them complete wilayat-e-takwini, which is that? Which means every object in this universe is obedient to them and is at their service if they call upon it. Whether it be pebbles, whether it be mountains, whether it be rivers, whether it be animals. How many stories have you heard of animals just bowing in front of Masumin? 9th Imam is thrown into the cell where there are fierce animals, yet they were thinking that they will go ahead and devour Imam. The animals come and lower their heads in front of Imam. On the day of Ashur in Karbala, Imam ﷺ, when he's facing this thirst for himself and his children, and he's asking and he's telling them to go fetch the water, Imam strikes with his asa, comes out the spring of water from there. He said, I can do that. Ismail is capable of rubbing his feet and water comes out and Zamzam is still flowing. You think Hussein can't do that? He did it. But he said, this is not what is the point over here. This is imtihan that we have to go through. And then Rasulullah making the pebbles talk on his hands. And all the other miracles and the karamat that are associated with Masumin. So Allah gave them complete wilayat-e-takwini. Meaning everything that exists in this universe is at the service of Imams and Masumin. Can you make a leaf move with your commands? Can you make a stone move with your commands? No. That's third difference between us. God gave guidance to Ahlul Bayt directly, whereas He gave guidance to us through them. And last difference is, no matter how many good acts you do, love of Ahlul Bayt is still a requirement for the acceptance. However, Ahlul Bayt aren't in need of anything as far as the acceptance of their actions is concerned. They don't need to have something aside from their amal for it to be accepted. But for you and I, along with our amal, what else is required? The walayat and the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. Salawat bi Muhammad wa alayhi. That's why, person said, there's a riwayat in Rawdatul Kafi, Muhammad ibn Muslim asked 5th Imam, I see many folks who pray with such khudu and khushu', but when it comes to your wilayat, they don't believe in it. Will their ibadat benefit them? Imam gave an example of the family of Bani Israel, where everyone worshipped for 40 nights, and after that, all their du'as were accepted, except one person who came to Prophet Isa and asked for the reason. Allah informed Hazrat Isa that this man doubts your nubuwwat if he worships so much so that his neck gets severed and fingers also get severed, his du'as will not be accepted because he does not believe in your nubuwwat. This is the story of Bani Israel and a man who worshipped for 40 nights. Everyone's dua was accepted because they believed in the nubuwwat of Nabi. But except this one person who did not believe in the nubuwwat, yet he performed the same exact amal. This proves that person's amal was not accepted merely because he did not believe in the nubuwwat. Imam said this proves that if you don't believe in our wilayat and our imamat, then your actions are up for grab as well. Effects of visiting imams. Lastly, inshallah, I'll conclude with it, that Hamran ibn A'yun asked Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam. This proves the effects of ziyarat. Why do we, emphasize so much on the ziyarat? Now, is it a business-making, matter that, that we're doing business about it? Some people might be doing business with it as well. But nonetheless, it does not diminish. If there's some negativity associated with an act, it does not diminish the value of that act. Right? Some might be mistreating it. And the simple example in ilm mantiq that they give is of a knife. A knife can be used to cut fruits. A knife could be used to go ahead and stab someone. Right? But that's not the reason that you go ahead and condemn all the knives in the world. It's the usage of it. So he says, this person, Humran ibn A'yun, asked fifth Imam, why is it that when we visit you, our hearts are cleansed and purified in your gathering? When we return to our business and people, we develop the love for this world. Are we munafiq? Imam narrated the discussion between Rasulullah and the companions and responded that no, this is not in munafiqat. In fact, shaitan finds this opportunity to go ahead and lure you into these actions. But as long as you show enough deterrence to shaitan, then that is also considered to be ibadat. Meaning you get busy with your kids, meaning you get busy with your providing for your family, meaning you get busy with the other worldly effects. It's not like you're totally disconnected with Allah or Imams. As long as that is the case, there's nothing wrong with it. Today, that point is also proven. We might not have the physical Imam amongst us who's in Parda Ghaib, but when you visit the Bargah of Masumeen, you get the similar effect. When you go for the ziyarat of Sayyidul Shuhada, you come back rejuvenated. This, spiritual uplifting happens once you are in that gathering. So we look at the teachings of our fifth Imam and how he showed immense amount of hilm, sabr, treating fuqara with compassion, his ibadat, his zuhud, and other things that I did not get to today as I have run out of my time. Inshallah, we'll have opportunity to highlight more of the features of our fifth Imam's life and legacy. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the tawfiq and ability to follow the commands and the teachings of our fifth Imam and Ahl Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. Inna asal hadith wa ablagh al-mawidha kitabullah wa billahi min shaitan rajim bismillahir rahmanir rahim wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضبه وبسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها وفان السيئات ولم يجاز بها سبحان من لا يزداد ولا معصي العباد إلا كرما وجودا ولا كثرة الذنوب إلا عفوا والصفحة نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو لا توف على العباد بجوده ولا فعل المظلمين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين بعثه رحمة للعالمين ألا قد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا للصفية إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه وآله وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين وبذة خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليه الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان ماهي آثار البدع والطغيان هادم أبنية الشرك والنفاق حاسد فروع البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام اتصلت الليالي والأيام. اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه وتفضل على أمراء المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات وازدياد الإقبال وأولو الدرجات. اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهل ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. من يذكر فتنفذ ذكر إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار بجاه محمد وآله الأطهار. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين بجاه محمد وآله الطاهرين. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف بجاه محمد وآله الطاهرين. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. تسبيح جناب فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. All of us together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة لابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Jummah Mubarak to all of you. Let's just recognize the sponsors for today's Jummah lunch. It's Brother Hamid. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept his amal. And please recite us Surah Fatiha for his deceased relatives as well as yours. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم الصراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل هو الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Tonight, from 5 to 7, this program is for kids and those who have already RSVP'd. mock Hajj for the kids taking place, inshallah, today. Kids will be performing the rituals of Hajj, steps of Hajj, and Eid al-Adha. Tomorrow, very important day, day of Arafah. We will have two items, two amal. One is the amal of the day of Arafah, which will start at 1 p.m. So right after Salatul Dhuhr, 1 hour long amal, in which we will perform the amal as well as recite Dua Arafah of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. That program, inshallah, will be from 1 to 2, so attend that. And then tomorrow night, we will have the majlis to commemorate the shahadat of Safir Hussain, Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi salam. That program, inshallah, will start at 7:30 p.m. and inshallah will conclude with Namaz-e-Maghribain around 8:52. Sunday will be Eid al-Adha, and just like every Eid, the program is pretty much the same. Nothing changes. We will start Eid program 9 o'clock with takbirat, and follow that, inshallah, we will have Dua Nutbah. After Dua Nutbah, we will have the Eid Salat, the khutbah of Eid, and inshallah, after Ziyarat, refreshments will be served over here. So that program starts at 9 a.m. You can just mark that for every Eid, Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr. Program here at Masjid-e-Ali starts at 9 a.m. And that is as far as Eid al-Adha, this coming Sunday, is concerned. Now, there are a lot of programs already for you to keep in mind, but and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves either, but just upcoming weeks, inshallah, we have two more important events that are coming up. One of the biggest Eid of all, which is Eid-e-Ghadir, inshallah, grand jashan for the celebration of Eid-e-Ghadir will take place here in Masjid-e-Ali next Saturday, which will be July 16th. Program will start at 6 p.m. We have a guest speaker, Sheikh Azhar Nasir, who's coming, inshallah. He will be addressing the keynote speech. And of course, we will have the local poets and shu'ara. Also, that program will feature a unique award ceremony recognizing some of the pioneers of Azadari here in New Jersey. So do take part in this program. Inshallah, starts at 6 p.m. and all our programs conclude with namaz. Following that, that is the following Saturday, inshallah, we'll continue to make these announcements. July 23rd, mark your calendar for Eid-e-Mubahala program. More details for that program, inshallah, will be sent out in next week's email. But immediately tomorrow, day of Arafah, Amal-e-Arafah at 1 p.m., followed by the majlis of Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil before Maghrib tomorrow night at 7:30, and Eid al-Adha prayer at 9 p.m. Inshallah, let's recite Dua-e-Sihat for all of those people who are in need of dua, suffering, struggling, going through difficult time, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them quick recovery. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu al-mubtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه يكشف السوء 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 ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. Let's proceed to Salatul Asr. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliyullah, Ashhadu anna Aliyan Hujjatullah, Hayya ala salati, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala al-falah, Hayya ala al-falah, حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم الصراط المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله ربنا الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد رب أدخلني مدخل صدق وأخرجني مخرج صدق واجعل لي من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر
ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد
محمد وآل محمد
اللهم
صل على محمد وآل محمد. تسبيح فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام، وأسأله أن يتوب علي توبة عبد ذليل خازن فقير باعث مسكين مستقيم مستجير، لا يملك لنفسه نفعا ولا ضرا ولا موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من نفس لا تشبع، ومن قلب لا يخشى، ومن علم لا ينفع، ومن صلاة لا ترفع، ومن دعاء لا يسمع. اللهم إني أسألك اليسر بعد العسر، والفرج بعد الكرب، والرخاء بعد الشدة. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم صل على
Mutawajjah ziyarat today will recite the ziyarat of Muslim ibn Aqil and Imam Baqir alayhi salam. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah, assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, ya Qasim al-Jannati wan-Nar, assalamu alayka ya Sayyid Nisa'il Alameen, assalamu alayka ya Muslim ibn Aqil ibn Abi Talib wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, assalamu alayka ayyub Salih, ashhadu annaka qad aqamta salat wa atata zakat wa amarta bil ma'ruf wa nahayta anil munkar wa jahadta fillahi haqqa jihadihi wa qutilta ala manhajil mujahidina fi sabilillahi hatta baqiyat Allah azza wa jal wa huwa anka razin wa ashhadu annaka wafaita bi ahadillah wa wazalta nafsaka fi nusrati hujjatillahi wa ibn hujaji. ashhadu annaka qutilta mazluma la lanahu madan qatlak وَلَّانَ لَهُ مَتَنْ ظَلَمَتْ وَلَّانَ لَهُ أَمْرًا بِقَتْلِكَ. السلام عليك أيها إمام الباقر بعلم الله، أيها الفائز عن دين الله، أيها المبين لحكم الله. السلام عليك أيها القائم بقائم قسط الله. السلام عليك أيها ناصر عباد الله. السلام عليك أيها الداعي إلى الله. السلام عليك أيها الدليل على الله. السلام عليك أيها الحبل المتين، أيها الفضل المبين، أيها نور الساطع. السلام عليك أيها البدر اللامع. السلام عليك أيها الحق الأبلج. السلام عليك أيها السراج الأسرج. السلام عليك أيها النصر الأزهر. السلام عليك أيها الكوكب الأبهر. السلام عليك أيها المنزه عن الموزلات، أيها المعصوم من الزلالات، أيها الزكي في الحسب، أيها الرفيع في النسب. السلام عليك أيها القصر المشيد، يا حجة الله إلى خلق أجمعين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أهل البيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب الأسر والزمان، يا خليفة الرحمن، يا إمام الإنس والجان، يا كعبة الإيمان، يا تفسير الفرقان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا إمام زماننا، أجل الله فرجك وصلى الله مرجك وظهورك